All right. I know some of you have tickets to give me this morning. You can do so on your way out the door. Make sure that you have signed it somewhere on that little ticket stub, and try to do it legibly so I can make sure I give you your accurate credit for having attended. Before we get into what we're really about today, how many of you still yet to see it? Still quite a few. I will at this point entertain any questions or comments for those of you who were here last night in terms of what you saw. Obviously, from the point of view that I've been teaching this class, it's all been about evaluation and analysis of what you've seen, and quite frankly, and a lot of what we've talked about is, judging the better from the worst. So with that said, does anybody have any comments about what they saw last night or any questions about what they saw last night?
I thought it was actually funny.
You thought it was what?
Funny.
Well, it is a comedy.
Yeah, but some comedies don't be as funny as. I didn't expect it to be that funny. And the costumes. Yeah.
Well, and I'm not trying to spoil this for the people who are yet to attend. That's the reason I asked the question. These weddings, as they are nowadays, a lot of them are theme-based. And obviously in the second act where the woman says, want it elegant, like French, runway model style. So they all went, okay, I'm going to come as Marie Antoinette. Like, oh, no. First time I saw that costume come on stage, I wondered whether it was going to fit through a door. It was actually funny. Well, it was supposed to be. That's what it's doing. It's satirizing, poking fun at the antics revolving around a wedding. And God knows, I've thrown 2 of them, and good Lord, you couldn't drag me kicking and screaming to do another one. I've got 2 daughters. Thank God I'm done with all that, and it's paid for. Any other questions or comments? Yeah. Do what? You talking about during the thunderstorm? That's a piece of cake stuff there. I mean, it's all driven through the lighting control console that's computerized. I program all that stuff. That's just, that kind of stuff. I'm not poking fun at you, but in this day and age, that crap, that's easy as pie. And there's nothing to it. I mean, you look at all the things that lights do in a concert. I mean, that's all just been programmed in by the computer programmer. Pardon me? Oh yeah, the stage manager's given the command to operate or to execute that programmed light cue. All of that stuff, it's all programmed. I mean, quite frankly, nowadays, in terms of lighting operation, you could train an iguana as long as it can stick out one toe and punch one button. And that's all the lighting operator is doing here, is punching a button, reading the computer screens, make sure everything's in sequence and all that. But that's easy. There's nothing to that. That's it.
How old were they when, for the first act? How old were they?
Tell you the truth, I really hadn't paid that much attention. The play takes place over a period of 7 years. And, they talk about the fact that they made this agreement when they were graduating high school that they would be in each other's weddings. The joke is they didn't know that they were each going to get married 10 times each and have to do this 10 times each. That gets to be quite a few of these ceremonies to go through. I'm guessing they're supposed to start off in like in their mid-30s and work up into their mid to late 40s, you know, over that period of time. Unfortunately, that's just one of those things where I never sat down and thought about that. I was too worried about my part of it. And you do hear, you know, dialogue that refers to this place, you know, Laurelton Oaks, you know, plantation in Virginia, and, you know, why did I drag myself back to my old hometown so we could, you know, go through another marriage here, yada, 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 you know, and the crazy lady that runs the place and all of that stuff. That's it. Well, next week I'm going to try setting your feet on fire and see if I can get a reaction out of you then. Maybe that'll do it. Now everybody's sitting there. How could y'all be so dead? I'm the one that's working around the clock. Sir? No. During these shows, I'm sitting in my office, you know, what can I do? And it's kind of like an expectant father, you know, your job's done. All you can do is sit there and kind of go, push it out, you know. I don't have any, you know, I divorced myself from this thing at final dress rehearsal, so no, I wasn't backstage. I was actually up in that control booth off and on from time to time watching you people texting. Why did you even come? But that's a whole nother story. Nothing else. Sir?
I thought the acting was pretty good overall. That's maybe a moment here or there.
Well, I appreciate your, you know, New York Times critical analysis here, but yeah, go ahead.
I don't know. It just felt as though that a moment here or there felt rather forced or something like that.
Yeah, you probably are right. I agree. And one of the funny things that I talked to you folks about when we were analyzing what we have seen, to use what I call a qualifier, like, well, it's only high school students, or it's only community theater. These aren't professional. You know, I'm almost compelled to step in my own mud puddle there. Again, these are, you know, beginning actors in training. There's some people on that stage that have never been on a stage in their life, but it's part of the process of educational theater. They got to learn by doing. And this is where they learn by doing. So, you know, it is what it is.
You said that there was a 300. That was the first, right?
Yeah. The one that's wearing the Birkenstocks, and, you know, they made several comments about, you know, get your eco-friendly derriere out here and let's get on with this. But that's what that's all was referring to. And again, it's, as I said, for the sake of comedy, the characters are fairly stereotyped. I mean, you look at that crazy lady that runs this facility. I mean, she's not just the stereotypical, you know, busybody, crazy person. I've never seen one. But that's the way the authors wrote it. And they're doing it for you to laugh at. They're not trying to be real, it's just they're laughing at them, poking fun at these kinds of people. It's like the mother at the end, you know, having a freak out about her daughter about to go down the aisle. But you see it every time. I saw it twice with my own wife. Like, stop! It's fine! But there you have it, for what it's worth. All right, what we're really about this morning is a preview of what we're going to be doing next week. And that has to do, I faked you out. watching this DVD of an actual play. It was not made for television. They actually videotaped in the theater in front of a live audience. The stage play. I guess they're going to expect you to mail those to them. Last two runs go way down there. Now, unfortunately, I got to do this again for the second part of this. Confused you. Go through this again. All right, what we're seeing this week, because I'm not asking you to write a 750-word essay and so on and so forth, is purely to allow you folks to, in some cases for the first time, experience live theater pretty close to the way it should be in the real world. This production of the William Inge play Bus Stop is going to be treated a little more academically. You're going to enjoy it. I've been showing it for a number of years, and all of my classes always seem to enjoy the production. It is a professional production with Hollywood, television, and Broadway caliber and quality actors in it, albeit it was produced a number of years ago. You very well may recognize a number of the actors in it, and in fact I have a cast list on the first sheet that I gave you this morning. But the point I'm making here is that we're going to treat it a little more academically in terms of analysis, in terms of what was there and why it was produced, why it was directed, why the scenic design is the way it is, why the lighting design is the way it is, why the costume design is the way it is, why the characters are interpreted the way that they're interpreted by the actors. In essence, what I'm attempting to do is to pull together everything that I've been talking about since January and kind of culminate it and bring some sense of closure to the class through this production in terms of analyzing it and, for all intents and purposes, dissecting it according to everything that I have talked about. We'll start with something fairly simple. And first and foremost, on the first handout I gave you, there's a lot of just background, general information about the play itself. On the back side of that handout a week from Monday, after we have seen the production, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of next week, it is a 3-act play, not a 2-act play. So we'll see an act a day. On that final Monday at the end of the class, we're going to talk about maybe a dozen of those questions that I'm going to randomly select. Some of them I'm actually going to cover today. Ergo, the reason why I've given you this stuff with the expectation that you'll be smart enough to read through all of this stuff so that you'll have it in the back of your minds while you're watching the play. We won't get through all of those. I'm not going to test you on all of those questions. Literally just the ones that we're able to cover in the time that we have at the end of the semester. With really only 4 days left after today. All right. One of the things that I need to tell you up front about this play is this is what we call in the world of dramatic literature a well-made play. It is a formula play. It's one of the reasons why I show this particular production to a class. You can find and discover and follow that Pasto formula clear as a bell. Preparation, attack, struggle, turning point, outcome, i.e. exposition, initial incident, rising action, turning point, and resolution. It is clear as a bell. I want you to watch for this, to listen for this, to identify, be able to identify where that stuff happens in terms of the dramatic structure. Secondly, I will tell you that this is a well-produced show. Yes, it was a professional production at the Garrison Theater in Southern California a number of years ago with a top-flight director who's done a lot of work on both, or actually in all 3 areas of theater, film, and television, and so forth. But the point here is that nothing is arbitrary about this production. Everything you hear, everything you see is for a specific reason, and that reason is the communication of the playwright's intent. I have mentioned the title of this play before to you folks, or not the title of it, but the theme of the play when we were talking about the term theme. It is stated very clearly on the top of the second handout under where it says bus stop and then the author's name or the playwright's name. And that is the need to risk the danger of intimacy, yet the fear of it. That's the statement that I'm using to summarize the theme of this play. How do we get there? All right, here's how. The title of the play, Bus Stop. All right, on the surface, what does that tell you about this play? Never heard of the play before, never seen the play, don't have any knowledge of it whatsoever. The title play is Bus Stop. First thing you've got to question is, okay, why? All right, why?
Because it takes place in a bus stop.
Because it takes place in a bus stop. Absolutely. Except it's not a bus stop it's not a formal bus stop, like an airport or a train station. Those are what we might call formal hubs of transportation. This play actually takes place at the intersection of 2 state highways, two-lane blacktop roads. At the intersection of these 2 roads, out in the middle of nowhere, somewhere in the Midwest. And it takes place in what we call in the South, a mom and pop greasy spoon cafe. And because this cafe is located at the intersection of these 2 state highways, the bus company uses this place as a stopover. This cafe, they use it as a stopover, meaning that as the bus is traveling east, west, north, south, matters not, after a number of hours of travel, the bus stops there for the passengers to get off, go to the restroom, stretch their legs, get something to eat in this cafe, have breakfast, have lunch, have dinner, depending on the time of day. And it also gives the bus driver an opportunity to take a break as well. All working employees are guaranteed a lunch break, a dinner break, breaks during the course of their working hours, and so on and so forth. Same thing applies here. But all of the action of the play takes place inside this little cafe. Now, here's the interesting point about all of this. This stopover, this rest period, in the real world would only last about 15 or 20 minutes. So the bus arrives, the passengers get off, they come into the cafe, they get something to eat, they go to the restroom, they stretch their legs, 15 minutes later they're back on the bus and are on the way. That'd be a hell of a short play. So what does the playwright do then to allow the action of the play to develop and to let the theme of the play to develop, to let the plot of the play to develop? Well, what we're going to find out is this night, on this particular night, and we're going to discover that the action of the play takes place in early March, like the first week or so of March. And in fact, you're going to hear several of the characters in the first few minutes of the play speak a line of dialogue that's actually an old cliche reference to the weather. And that cliche reference to the weather, or colloquialism, is March is coming in like a lion. March is coming in like a lion. Now, they don't ever on stage deliver the rest of that line of dialogue, or that rest of that colloquialism, because the whole of it is March is coming in like a lion, but goes out like a lamb. March is coming in like a lion, but goes out like a lamb. Now again, what I'm getting at here is the fact that the dialogue is jam-packed with expository information. Now, let me analyze this line for a moment. Yes, I'm going to get back to where I was going. March is coming in like a lion, but we don't hear leaves like a lamb. What was the weather like during your spring break?
Ooh,
Very.
You're daggum right.
it snowed.
And wet. There we have this pretty weather, and then boom, there's March, and we've got the crappiest weather we've had all winter. Boy, the gods were looking favorably upon you people. So you should have studied harder. You wouldn't have gotten punished. You get a week off and you can't do a thing. The point here is March is a transitional month in terms of our environment and in terms of our weather. It's a transitional month, meaning that the first week or two of March, we're usually getting that last blast of winter. And by the end of March, we begin to see things greening up, buds of leaves on trees, the daffodils blooming, and so forth. So March comes in like a lion and goes out like a lamb. That line of dialogue is one of the biggest pieces of foreshadowing of where this play is going to go. I'm not going to tell you where yet. I want you to see it and figure it out for yourself. But I got to get back now to, okay, the bus arrives, people get off, they get something to eat, they get back on the bus, they go on their merry way. Short play. On this particular night, taking advantage of the fact that March is coming in like a lion, the playwright throws a blizzard at the characters in the play. And when they arrive, they're forced to stay there because of the weather conditions. They're forced to stay there because of the weather conditions. They get a communication from the Department of Transportation that the highway that bus is going to be traveling on as it continues on its route is blocked because of a blizzard. Now all of a sudden the playwright has created a device, the snowstorm, to trap all of the characters inside of this cafe for a period of a number of hours, about 6 hours, so that we can now develop the theme, we can now develop the characters, we now can develop the action of the play. At this bus stop. Now, we'll go back to the title of Bus Stop for a moment. All right, we've established through the title the location of the action of the play, but I will also say this about a bus stop. Most of the time when you come across a place that has a transportation hub, Charlotte with its airport, Columbia with its airport, do any of you know why Florence even exists? Why the city of Florence exists?
It's a hub.
Of what?
Well, I thought it was the roadways, right?
Well, yeah, we're at the intersection of two major East Coast highways, I-20 and I-95. Then there's something else to add on top of that. A few years ago, what was a major form of transportation coming out of here? And I'm not talking about the Florence Airport Hair Care and Tire Center. Railroad. For 100 years. Going all the way back prior to the Civil War. This was a major transportation hub in terms of the railroad, moving east-west and more north-south. Today, more north-south than east-west. Because you can't go any further east, you'll be in the darn Atlantic Ocean. But what I'm getting at is, where do you find these kinds of places? Like Florence, what did you say? Intersection of I-20 and I-95. What do we call when two streets or highways cross each other?
Crossroads.
A crossroads. Those kinds of places are always at a crossroads. All right, have you ever heard anybody say, oh, so-and-so, they're at a crossroads in their life? In 2 weeks, we're going to run a couple of hundred students across the stage in the gym and hand them their diploma. And you could say about each and every one of those students that they are at a crossroads in their life. That does not mean that they're standing in the middle of Francis Marion Road with National Cemetery Road going this way, and they're standing in the middle of the street going, somebody run over me. Stand there long enough, they will. I'm not talking about physically, I'm talking about symbolically. And what we're going to find is all of the characters in the play are at some kind of symbolic crossroads in their lives, where they need to make decisions about their lives. Now, how does this get back to the theme that I started with? The need to risk the danger of intimacy, yet the fear of it. People need to make decisions. Step up to the plate. Take a risk. Try something new. Do something different. And what we're going to discover very quickly in the first act is, and it'll obviously continue through the rest of the play, that this whole play is about relationships and how relationships develop, how relationships mature, how relationships deteriorate, and so forth. And it's about development of relationships. Ooh, I'm getting long-winded. Nonetheless, on the front side of the second handout that I gave you, I've given you a character list. Not a cast list, but actually a character list. Let me introduce you to the characters so that you are well prepared to view beginning Monday. First character I've got on there is a woman named Grace, or Gracie. She's a middle-aged woman. She actually owns and operates this cafe and runs the place. She's divorced. She lives in an apartment that is upstairs on the second floor of this building. As I say, this play is about relationships. It is also about how people deal with loneliness in their lives. It even delves into the idea of the difference between being alone and being lonely, which are two totally different things. But anyway, we have her. She's kind of looking to break out of the rut that she lives in. There's another character, a young waitress named Elma. She's Grace's niece. She's about 16, obviously still in high school. She is academically incredibly intelligent, but really naive about the inner workings of the real world. Also, in terms of the people that live in this town, is Sheriff Will Masters. I've got the statement here. Note the cliche name. A lot of these names are really cliche. I'm going to get to that in a moment. But in his case, he wants to control things. He's a little bit of a control freak. Ergo the name Master or Masters. He wants to control things. He wants to be the master. He likes for things to be kept in order. Not just law and order, but he wants to, everything to run smoothly. Now we get to the people that are on the bus. There's a guy named Carl. He's the bus driver. Again, he's a middle-aged guy. He thinks he's a bit of a ladies' man. You're going to like him. Also on the bus is an alcoholic college professor, Dr. Gerald Lyman. Again, note the cliche name, Lyman, lying man. He is a Shakespearean scholar. He recites bits and pieces of sonnets and plays, of Shakespeare's plays, all through the production. And I also state here that he serves as a bit of a narrator. This guy likes to kind of sit on the edge of the cafe around the outer walls and watch what is going on around him, and then he comments on them. And the playwright is using him as a kind of a narrator to advance the plot and the theme. Also on the bus is a young woman named Cherie. She got on the bus in Kansas City, Missouri, and is headed west for a reason I won't go into at this point. She works in a nightclub called the Blue Dragon. How in the world did she get here? Well, there's also another character on the bus by the name of Bo Decker. Again, look at the cliche name. He'd rather deck you than talk to you, especially if you annoy him. Bo Decker has gone to Kansas City, Missouri from his ranch in Montana to participate in a rodeo where he goes and becomes very successful in rodeo. He wins the grand championship in terms of the various events. Each night after the rodeo competition, he goes into town to this nightclub called the Blue Dragon, where he meets Cherie. They have a little one-night stand. She thinks nothing of it. He thinks, well, dear God, if we've done this, we're going to have to get married now. She's not interested. And quite frankly, he's kidnapped her and put her on the bus and plans to take her back to his ranch in Montana for them to get married. And then the final character that is involved in this thing is a guy named Virgil Blessing. And yes, indeed, he is a blessing to all that know him. He's Bo's sidekick. He's the head ranch hand. He's the foreman of Bo's ranch. He has known Bo for many, many years, and in essence has been a kind of a surrogate father to him. And he tries to control him, sometimes successfully and not so successfully sometimes. But he is wise beyond his years and bears paying attention to in terms of you watching and listening. Now, I know this all sounds like a bunch of mystical gobbledygook, but it exists, and I want you to listen for it.